Yes, it's 30th of March 24, and I'm talking about Scotland's hate law, which comes into Hums's hate law basically, um, which comes in the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, and I think it's really a terrible time for Scotland. So I better get this done before it comes in, and yeah, I think it's a really terrible time for Scotland. It's a sign of a pattern and of traditional SNP voters don't change dramatically. It's going to be too late to do anything about it. Them and voters, basically, you need to use your vote as a protest vote, and you need to vote Tory or further right. Because if you're voting any party on the left, you're just voting for the same thing. This law, really, it's Humza. It's brought it all himself. He formed it himself when he was Justice Secretary. I don't know, when he was. I've never heard of a Justice Secretary get arrested for driving a car that wasn't his with no insurance. But I can't remember the story about that. But funny how but don't know, I think he was a health secretary then. But even still, if you think if it was a Tory minister, they would have to resign. It'd probably be the end of their career. But yeah, anyway, we formed this. I think it's very important to him, and to me, it seems like a sort of Stasi thing. It's a sort of anti-free speech, and sort of you can't say anything about the way Scotland's changing, which it has already a lot. And I've noticed that there's about 4 or 5 protected groups in the thing, the hate law. And I've noticed he keeps using really 2 and avoiding another 2 when he uses them as examples. One of them, the GB News, always makes a big fuss about, and you could say the top politicians in Britain make a big thing about, and the other one avoids the other 2, it seems. And we're going through a great change, and this seems like to me, it seems like, even going by the advert that they just had an advert recently, and it talked about young men from council estates uh, who feel they've got white privilege. I think it said something like that. I mean, to me, it was a hate crime, basically. It broke its own law in quite a few ways, not just being anti-white, it was also the young and the poor, basically. I don't know. It was ridiculous, and that was removed. I mean, I would be interested to know who wrote that and who approved it. Because it was just the wrong message. I mean, there's things happening in Scotland now that I can't believe are happening. It really just feels something like Putin's Russia or thing. Just these changes that come in that make you really worried. And from what I'm seeing on YouTube, the feedback, people are really angry about it, and they're worried about it because like people can report you anonymously. Um, the police say they're going to investigate everything, you know, and there was even a case on Craig Houston's YouTube channel. It's a good channel for Scottish politics. Um, Casey, that's the King Council. He's one of the top, basically, a High Court lawyer, probably the top 5%. And he was saying that he doesn't understand it. And although he has views and things, he wouldn't tweet about them or anything because he doesn't understand the parameters. And, uh, so if somebody like that, a King's Counsel, one of our top lawyers, is saying that, what chance have the rest of us got? It's just totally bizarre that this is happening in Scotland. I suppose this is the third time that SNP have tried something like this. The first time was the thing about Celtic Rangers, the sectarian chanting law. But at least with that, at least you understood whereabouts uh, whereabouts you could have a problem, like chanting, football chanting or chanting in the streets or whatever. Um, but I mean, I didn't really agree with that, but I could see how they were trying to get out a long thingy of Scotland over 120 years or something. But it seems quaint now, funnily enough, the way that Scotland's changing. It's just a thing. It's not even an important thing or whatever now, but compared to what we're going through. And somebody scrapped that. I can't remember who. I think it was maybe Labour, and that was them just being populist, really. I can't remember. I don't know if it was under Anna Sarwar. It probably was. Possibly was. It was just a populist move, because they probably agreed with it. I think they even maybe voted it through. Um, but just a populist thing. And then the next thing was that gender thing, which just seemed to come out of the blue from nowhere. People weren't really paying attention. That's what happens in politics. They come up with these bills that they go through, and it's got one person's footprints all over it, handprints all over it. And then when you actually see when it's about to get through, the public go, "Hang on a minute, I don't think I agree with this." But the gender thing, that was once something that women didn't like. Scottish women now. So, and I think the government, the UK government, the Tory government came in and stopped that going through under a Section 35 or something. So it's ironic that the Tory government saved us from that, because maybe Scottish women would have started turning against SNP on that. So that was a gender thing. That was a thing that was important to Nicola Sturgeon. I don't know how much she had to do with who created that and all that. Again, probably Labour voted it through as well. So the way they get saved there, and that's really what when Nicola Sturgeon chucked it. Real funny enough, the Irish guys just chucked it after he lost the referendum. He got about 30% of the all over Ireland. He's, he just feels it's time to go, but I think he's sort of seen how the things are going there, because the Irish at the moment are going through the great change and they're not liking it. Yeah, so I'm wondering why the Tory government haven't come in to veto this, because they can veto Scottish laws, Holyrood laws. But I'm thinking that maybe they're letting it go through because they know it'll be a vote loser. So they're letting it go through because all the feedback. I mean, when I'm looking at Daily Record YouTube, it's getting a lot of views for the First Minister's questions the other day on Thursday, where there was hardly any SNP politicians there. I could see MSPs, but they're probably all away on holiday right enough. But yeah, I would have thought it would have been a full house to support Humza, because that's what Douglas Ross brought up, because Murdo Fraser's had a non-crime hate incident logged against him for a tweet, and he didn't know about it. He wasn't told about it until later on in some sort of bureaucracy thing. He wasn't expecting to be told. He didn't know about it. So that's the sort of thing that's happening. I think this is the other thing that will surprise the woke as well. The woke think they can say things, but I'll probably come back and bite them as well, because at the moment they feel that they're the witch hunters, but they'll find that they're going to be hunted as well for things. So yeah, I think what's going to happen is J.K. Rowling's probably going to get reported or something, and then she's got the finance to deal with the court case. So hopefully it'll just all just crumble. I mean, I would like to see the SNP kicked out, and but not Labour brought in. The worst thing you can do is bring Labour in, because I suspect they'll probably keep it. What you really need to do if you're worried about it is to vote Tory or further right as a protest vote. There's no one on the left to vote for on this, apart from the Social Democrat Party, but they're hardly sitting in any seats at elections at the moment. So you've just got to say, I'm not going to vote the way you typically expect. you expect me to vote from SNP to Labour or vice versa. I'm not going to do that. So this time I'm going to vote Tory for a right, so that you know something's up. You know, I think it's the only thing you can do, really. To me, the law doesn't understand Scotland or the West, really, I would say, free speech and values. That's to me what it really implies. And things that have been said recently, like I said, that advert, and then calling the Lockerbie terrorist disaster, the Lockerbie terrorist, calling it a Lockerbie disaster. I mean, I wonder how people of Lockerbie feel about that, it being called a disaster, as if it's something it could be a natural disaster, And then there was a greeting the other day for the Christian communities, or the Scottish Christian communities. That happened to be like 90% of the population, or the traditional. It's really scary what's happening, really. And I saw it Hamza when he was defending his thing yesterday. As I say, he uses two groupings to defend it. One that's GB News go on about, but he seems to avoid 2 or 3 groupings when he's saying it. But I think that is how he's perceiving it, and because all this diversity, exclusion, or integration, or whatever, I can't remember what they call it, but they're all sort of bundled into the one thing, and I feel sorry for some of the groups, like the disabled group and the LGBTQT plus group. They're getting bundled in with everything else. Because I noticed that at the ALBA conference, I heard it on, I was listening to it, some of it, and then you hear some voices that I don't recognise, and then you hear an accent that I do recognise, and then I'm thinking, oh, that'll probably be the disabled person, or the LGBTQT plus lady or something, they're getting bolted on at the end there at the ALBA, because ALBA are just as bad on this subject. So, yeah, so you've got to vote Tory or for the right, as a protest vote. I just can't believe this is happening. It doesn't look as if the Tories are going to save us this time, probably because there's an election coming up and they see it as a vote loser. They even put out a public announcement earlier in the week saying that it will have a chilling effect on free speech in Scotland, and that's exactly what it's meant to do. It's meant to be like the Stasi police come in. Your children can report you if you say something in your house. It's got rats. Like Saddam's Iraq. Like Putin's Russia. I don't know how this has come about. And then to see Shona Robinson applauding Humza yesterday at First Minister's questions, it's just. And I looked at it, the Daily Record in Scotland on YouTube, and all the comments were against it, and scared and angry. So but I can tell that Humza really wants us to get through that. I don't know why it's taken 3 years. I've not known a bill to take 3 years to get approved. I'm thinking that he's thinking if he doesn't do anything else, he's going to get us through, and he's thinking that Labour won't remove it like they did with the sectarian thing. If it was him, I think it was him, yeah. And this seems to be happening all over the West from the woke witch hunters. Because like Ireland's going through this as well, but now that they had a referendum the other week on changing a couple of things on their original Bill of Rights or whatever that they made in the 1930s or something, and it was one was to remove women from something, and the other was to make it, rather than family, to make it close people or something like that. But I think the Irish people just saw it as a chance to vote against the change, and they voted against it at 70-30. I mean, it's unprecedented, really. I mean, usually when when the Irish politicians put a referendum through that it goes through. It didn't 20 years ago. It was something to do with the EU, to do with the Lisbon Treaty or something, but they were forced to do it again. The public were forced to do it again and approve it. But usually they just approve all these woke things. But this time, I think they were just using that as a chance to show their disapproval, because there's no real party you can vote for on Ireland if you're worried about the way Ireland's changing. There is now one called the National Party, but at the moment it's very small. But I would imagine that'll do well. I mean, Sinn Féin are a busted flush, really. I think they were like 32% in the polls, but they're already falling back. And they've just said they also put a hate crime thing through. I mean, hate bill is the right way to put it, really, but they put one through and they were about to put it through as a bill or pass it as a bill. And Sinn Féin have just come out and said, we can't go through with this. And even though I think they might be the biggest party actually, but the other two joined up so that they were the government. But and Varadkar's resigned 2 weeks later. He says he just felt the time was right, but I'm guessing it's because of this, because he sees the way that the Irish people are going to vote now, and he's not going to get his way, basically. Yeah, so they're sort of doing a U-turn at the moment. Scotland's not. I think Humza's dead on this. This is the only thing that he cares about the most to get through. He's not bothered if he gets kicked out in 6 months or whatever, or at the elections or whatever. He just wants this through, and he feels that Labour won't change it, especially under the current leadership. They probably feel the same way. So all the SNP voters can do is vote Tory or further right any chance you get in council elections, just to show a protest vote. Because there's pretty soon there's not going to be anything you can say, really. You don't know what's going to happen. And as that top lawyer said, he doesn't understand it, and he doesn't understand the parameters. So he's not going to say anything on tweet, even if he has opinions, because he doesn't understand it. You know, what chance have the rest of us got? So it really is terrible times for Scotland. I don't know how SNP, of all people, bringing it through, the woke, bringing through anything that Saddam used and East Germany used, Putin uses. It's just hard to believe. And we've not really had any poll to show us how the people feel about it, but going by the YouTube videos and that, you know, Craig Houston's videos and Silver Fox hot takes, it doesn't look as if the current main SNP voters and that like it, but you can't be sure. So you really need to do a protest vote, forget everything else at elections, you know. Yeah, because there was a thing in Denmark. I think Stephen Kinnock's wife was a prime minister there for their Labour Party from 2011 to 2015. But during her reign, I mean, she was very open borders and that. During her reign, the Danish public really went against it. So at the end of her reign, she was saying sort of tough things about it because she knew she was going to lose the election. She lost it anyway, and the next party brought in quite strict rules on that subject. But then, sadly, Labour got in again, I don't know, 2019 or something, and they jailed the minister that brought the rules in, which is unbelievable. And to think that the left done that, the woke done that, jailing people, it's just hard to believe. And then there was some politician in Belgium just get thing made recently. I mean, I can't say how many times it just reminds me of Saddam's Iraq and all these people that are scared to talk, you know. And as the Tory said, it's going to cause a chilling effect. Yeah. So this all starts on 1st of April, and I really hope that the public just make a big thing about it like they did with the poll tax. It's hard to know what the left feel about this. I know a lot of them will be supportive, but do they really in their hearts? And a lot are going to get caught in it as well. They don't realise at the moment. So you just need to see how it goes. And as I say, if you vote SNP and Lib Dems, you do a protest vote and vote Tory for the right at any chance. Council elections, by-elections, main elections, nothing else matters at the moment, because it's looking as if Scotland and the West is going to become total disaster zones, in my opinion. I mean, I'm feeling worried about anarchy, really. So that's my opinion on that. It's 30th of March, 24.